Today I'm going to be doing a review on the Kershaw Emerson collaboration. This is the CQC-8. I've carried this for a little over 2 weeks now. Since I got it, I've almost carried it daily and specifically used it at work, where I work. I open a lot of boxes. So it gave me a good idea of how it performed, and you can see it definitely was cutting into some hard things at times. The blade is pretty scratched up, but it fared well. The 8CR13 MOV, which these are made out of, is easy to sharpen, and it gets a good edge. This one, where it was overheated a little near the tip, I think suffered a little initially. I still want to lay it back even thinner, but it's still performing good. It's not having like really poor performance, and it sharpens up pretty well. The ergonomics are very comfortable during use. I didn't get any hot spots when I would use it. Your thumb at least mine, falls pretty naturally into this ramp, although, you know, I would cut like this sometimes. An interesting note with the wave opening, normally I would be kind of against using it on a higher dollar knife just because it's going to add additional wear and tear as it's slamming into the stop pin. That force is slowly, you know, gonna deform the back of the frame. It's if you read Bob Trezzola's book on folding knife, he has a whole, I hope I pronounced his last name right, he has a whole section in the book where he explains lock geometry in relation to the stop pin, pivot pin, and the interface. And this seems to line pretty much right up with what he considers ideal. Obviously the linear lock and frame lock are very popular. They aren't exactly the best for abuse. The main reason is because, and he'll note in the book, if your lock face becomes too deformed or is off, you're prone to, you know, either slipping or it's just going to go all the way across. Honestly, if it goes all the way across, it's probably safer. You'll notice on some Swiss Army knives that it's like a liner lock, but it doesn't really fully meet the cutout in the tang. It more just falls all the way across the frame lock. And if you watch Kylie Harris's videos on CKC knives, that's his YouTube channel, I'll try and link that in below. He did a test of one, and it was pretty much, I don't even think he got it to fail, smashing it with like a broomstick handle. So, you know, all that's subjective, but this has held up fine. I was using the wave opening to see how it would hold up to, I guess, what in my mind I would consider abuse, and it is still as solid as the first day I got it. The lock may have settled a little more over, but it hasn't actually shifted a lot. Like if you were to actually, you know, smash the vase in somewhere, it can move over. It is moderately thinly ground. It's probably not the right terminology, but it is relatively thin. Near the tip, it didn't ever go over 25 thousandths thick. It was always right around 20 to 22 in the tip area. Right here in like the mid section of the blade, where actually a lot of your cutting is going to fall, it was between 16 and 18 thousandths thick. It just kind of varies. And then in the heel, it was back to around 20 thousandths. That's not bad. That puts it into like paramilitary 2 range. For me personally, I consider that a medium level of performance, although the blade stock is relatively thin, so still get good cutting ability. I think I went an entire week without sharpening it, and at the end of the week, well, my work week's 4 days, so at the end of those 4 days, it was blunted to where it was starting to tear cardboard. It's was not without impact though against like metal, the heavy folding staples. And if you go back and watch like an update account, I may have said this in my initial video on this. I had an M390 blade I carried from it was a paramilitary 2, and it suffered a large chunk being chipped out when it hit the staple. Obviously, geometries aren't exactly the same, but that can show you the contrast between something that has a higher carbide volume and an impact and this, which would just tend to blunt. So for me, that can be an advantage because I would rather sharpen a blunted edge or rolled versus an actual chip. You have to lay back your secondary bevel farther to remove the chip. You lose more metal, It's very smooth, opens up no problem. And it deploys fine with, like I said, with the wave. It actually deploys very quickly from the pocket. And if you're going to look at it from a tactical perspective, I can see how it's useful, I suppose. You know, you can draw it right out of your pocket, snag it, and open it. It's very quick. I do have to admit, it's not, again, something I'd want to use all the time for opening a knife, but it was handy at work when I'd be holding something with one hand and needed just, I don't know, it'd be a real quick open. I could just grab the knife, pull it out of my pocket, it'd snag open, not hit my fingers, and I could make the cut. It was more when I had an awkward position, I was holding something and needed it just easily. The pocket clips perform fine. One thing I noticed is that the way it actually sits in the pocket, when you grab it, it kind of aids in pulling it out of your pocket like this and snagging the wave. And again, I didn't have any hot spots to note during use. Like I said, I was impressed that they milled the inside of the liners out. They're rounded, beveled. So overall, I think for $35, it is a great beater knife. I would put it alongside like the value of the Tenacious from Spyderco and other budget knives. And it's in a frame lock. They have a couple different models, and the G10, just as a side note, is smooth like the Persistence from Spyderco or the Tenacious. It reminds me exactly of the same G10. It makes me wonder if these are made in the same factory, although I guess now that I think about it, I think Kai has their own manufacturing. So anyway, that's it, guys. I would recommend it. For the $35, you're not out much. The quality control is on par, in my opinion, with Emerson. I was chatting with a subscriber where I don't really feel that the excuse of it's made in the USA and it's meant to be a user is fine to have poor quality control in general. That's just what I experienced with Emerson's, and this is on par, like I said, for a $35 knife as the Emerson's I had, and some of them are nearly 10 times the amount of this. Not quite, more like maybe 7 or 8, but still. You can find this as low as like $29 too, so with shipping it's still only $30. It's really not a bad deal for just a cheap beater knife that you really don't care what happens to in the long run. So thanks for watching as always, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will be bringing you more stuff soon.